Top of the hour. Time to start our meeting. We start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk Cody, roll call, please.
Supervisor Gunning?
Here.
Treasurer Rice?
Here.
Trustee Hauk?
Here.
Trustee Landon?
Here.
Trustee Worley?
Here.
Clerk Cody here?
All right. Item 4 is the approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second?
Okay, discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of the approval of the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda approved. And we jump right up into item 5. This is going to be a list of interviewees for the unexpired trustee vacancy. Our first presentation will be by Robert Bacon. And Robert, we are setting a 5-minute limit on presentation.
Thank you. Robert Bacon, trying to fill the vacancy on the Board of Trustees. I am currently serving on the Economic Development Authority, originally appointed by Russ and reconfirmed by yourself. I did. I was on the Planning Commission and the ZBA back in the 90s. I'm not sure exactly about the dates, but I sat with Marge back in, Jim Collin was supervisor at the time, and Ken Schaefer and Jim Burway. So I have a little institutional knowledge from 20 years ago, but it's been a while since I've gotten re-involved. But I believe I have some solid credentials in terms of having done site plan reviews and master plans and variance requests, and learning the budget here on the Economic Development Authority side. I'm a little slower on the budgetary than the zoning and planning aspects, but I believe solid credentials of having done service on various boards and would be a decent candidate for it. I'm retired from the Department of Corrections after 25 years, so I have a little bit of policy and procedure and crisis management skills in terms of career choices. So I just believe I bring a viable alternative to perspective from some years ago and knowledge that could be useful. I'll leave it up to questions and comments.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Bacon?
I was going to ask why you wanted to be a board of trustee, but you pretty much covered that in your presentation, so.
Woody Woodruff originally got me involved many, many years ago.
And Bob, what do you think you would bring to the table here in terms of your contribution? What do you think you'd bring, how would you contribute to the board?
I believe I'm fairly independent. I'm not really too tied in with either parties. I'm pro-development, but I understand that we have to have our rules and regulations about how many units we can put on a lot or anything. So I'm, pro-development. I believe we need the revenue that new development brings. So you don't want to be against it, but you have to also be concerned about the impact on the neighborhood around. So I just believe a fair and balanced middle ground approach.
Robert, who do you think should be responsible for sidewalks? If a business goes and builds a new building, a residential home, who do you think should be responsible for paying for sidewalks?
I believe the developer should. If that's part of the site plan review, that's what we want, is that they pay for it.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question, and I'll be asking each of the applicants the same question, but the Michigan Township Association brought a questionnaire survey to this board as well as all the township boards, and it had to do with our thoughts on political affiliation and the importance of that in elections. And they were just polling the townships, and we had discussion on that. And as I remember it, this board other than myself, thought that being affiliated with a party when you go out for election is important. At the local level, my belief was it's not important to me. I don't really see the affiliation coming in at a great extent at this level. Similar to, as also, you know, the sheriff. Is it important if he's a Republican or a Democrat? But it did seem important to this board, and it seems to be important to the voting public. So I am interested to learn how you would identify as far as if you were to run for election.
I would have to say I'm a urban planner, not a politician. I'm really more interested in roads and sewers and sidewalks issues than identifying. That said, I grew up as a lifelong Union Democrat. That is what my experience was as a, you know, many, many years. I started to veer away from that a bit, but I would rather not identify, but that's what I would have to identify as. But I'm really just an urban planning kind of guy, not really so much into the
Yeah.
party affiliation aspect of this, because I agree with you that at this level, we're just talking about sidewalks and sewers.
My question, I guess, is if you were, you know, if next year, if you were to be appointed, is this something that you would apply for, or, you know, try to run again to try to run for trustee? Is that something you would be interested in the future, or?
I'm kind of open-minded about that right now, and we'll see. I probably would run as an independent if I did, which handicaps you, but that's probably the route I'd have to go.
Are there any further questions? Bob, my question for you is, what do you feel is the greatest challenge moving forward for Union Township?
For just Union Township or
For
townships
Union
in
Township.
general? Well, obviously, big box stores aren't coming in like they used to. So how do we generate the revenue from other sources? What do we bring in to start increasing our tax base? Since the big boxes aren't coming in, apartments are slowing down, but we still want to generate growth. And what is it that we bring in to manage to do that? I think townships in general, dark store theory, tax valuation is something that should be scaring every township. And that's something I'm going to keep my eyes and ears open for any stories dealing with how that could affect our revenue down the road. But revenue generation.
Very good. I think probably your 5 is up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our second candidate, our applicant, I should say, was Taylor Sheelan Stahl. He could not make it this evening. I will read an email that was sent by Taylor, so he's represented. I would like to extend my apologies to you and the board for my absence at tonight's meeting. Why would I make a good Charter Township a Union trustee member? With my 4.5 years as a Mount Pleasant Public Schools board member, I have experience working with fellow board members on a common goal. I understand budgetary matters and the importance of maximizing taxes without needless spending. With my experience on the Union Township Zoning Board of Appeals, I have assisted in maintaining fair ordinances and maintain the future development of the township. I know I can make the tough decisions for the future success of our township. Furthermore, Union Township is derived of many stakeholders, and I will carefully take each resident, business owner, and landowner in consideration with voting as a trustee. Thank you for your consideration, Taylor Sheeran Stahl. I wouldn't be able to answer any of his questions, so don't bother. We will jump from Taylor to our candidate number 3, which would be Brian Smith.
Good evening, everybody. I prepared a short little statement. Board of Trustees, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to present myself and the qualifications for the appointment to the Board of Trustees. As you can see from my resume, I have 10 years of local government management experience. It includes my time as Gratiot County Administrator and, of course, the Township Manager for the Charter Township of Union. I currently serve as the Economic Development Director for the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe. As we are well aware, a member of the Board of Trustees does not fill the same role as a Township Manager or County Administrator. But I believe that my policy development experience in those positions gives me a knowledgeable voice during deliberations. I have successfully negotiated 6 contracts with 4 negotiations. I have prepared budgets that served as guides for the implementation of goals and objectives of the respective boards. Detailed road funding plans utilizing township funds or grant dollars was an integral part of this process. I worked hard on getting sidewalks placed in business corridors, and I was here when the non-motorized plan was written and approved. I worked with the Michigan Township Association and their lobbyists on bills that had an impact to the township. Along with current trustee Tim Lannon and the Board of Trustees that was seated in 2010, we created the policy governance document that is still in use today. I want to make it clear that I understand the role of the board and of the township manager and management team. Those roles are clearly defined in the policy governance document, and I would adhere to those policies to the utmost degree. The township is moving forward in a positive direction in many areas thanks to this separation of duties, and I would not want to change that. Beyond my current and past professional positions, I've been fortunate to be able to serve as chairman of the Cultural and Recreational Commission of Isabella County, former vice president of the Sacred Heart Academy School Board. I'm currently on the board of directors for both Middle Michigan Development Corporation and the Aranet County Economic Development Corporation. And I'm also enrolled in the Great Lakes Bay Region Institute for Leaders class. These boards highlight the commitment I would bring to the Board of Trustees, namely by adhering to policy title Global N 1.0. Union Township exists to support a sustainable community through the most effective use of resources that achieve the highest quality of life. I would like to thank you again for your time and consideration for me to be appointed to the Township Board of Trustees. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Okay, at this time, we can ask questions.
Brian, what was the biggest challenge you faced when you were manager?
Biggest challenge was probably sidewalks on the Bluegrass Corridor. That was a tough situation. Anybody that was on the board at the time, trying to get easements from businesses that were already established and trying to get that done. Finally, the board, after years of trying to get it done, is like, just get in what you can get in. And that was probably the most frustrating because it was such a need, and there is still such a need out there. And it was frustrating, but it was rewarding when at least some of it was put in. At least something was done, but boy, that was tough.
You took my question away from board member comments tonight.
Well, sorry.
Brian, 2 questions for you. One, you had talked about the policy governance that we adopted to operate under as a township board. You mentioned a little bit about it, but just briefly again, give me some of your thoughts on the positive reasons to follow policy governance, and what would be negative reasons for doing without policy governance in the operation of the
Positive will be easy. Positive, I think, it outlines the roles and responsibility for the board and the township manager and management team. I think that was the clearest thing, because when you get a township and you got 3 elected officials that have various statutory roles, and then you hire a township manager, it creates kind of some conflict. I think the adoption of a rigorous monitoring schedule is probably a very important part of that document, so that the township board knows exactly what the township manager and the management team is doing. And then it also allows the manager and management team to know what the expectations are. So it lays it out clearly. So I think probably the monitoring reports placed on the manager, in which I did all those initially, and I know Mark has changed a few of them, and a couple of them he's done a very nice job on some of the changes that he's done. But I think the monitoring reports is probably the best thing about it, I don't know if there's a bad thing about it. I just sometimes think some of the wording, like when you get into global lens and stuff like that, it maybe is unclear to the public. And so that would be my only slight negative to it. It's just it's clear to everybody in here that when we were going weeks and weeks and weeks of going through it, we understood it, but it's getting the community to know, well, what really are global lens?
Okay. My negative question was actually leaning towards not having policy governance.
Oh,
What
not
would be
having,
some
I'm
negative-
sorry, I took it the wrong way
No,
then.
glad to hear it.
Then it just creates kind of ambiguity and can create friction. It just, I know when I first came on board and John Barker was supervisor, and before we had the policy governance document, it was trying to establish what the supervisor was going to do and what I was going to do, because it was a transformation from just more to the professional management person coming in, so we had to work that out. So without that document, it would have made my ability to manage the operations of the township and the staff much more difficult.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And if this was an election as opposed to appointment, which it potentially could
Mhm.
become an election.
Right.
If we don't appoint someone tonight, what party would you affiliate with?
And I'm glad I was up second, so I could kind of formulate my answer a little bit better on that one. I'm just being honest with you, I would have to say there's a lot of issues. I hate to say I'm middle of the road, that I'm a conservative Democrat or more a liberal Republican. I'm middle of the road because I see different things on both sides that just drives me nuts, But if I had to declare, I would say Democrat.
Is that the way you would run?
That's the way I would run.
If you were going to go for an
Yes.
election,
If
you'd
I
run
had,
with the Democratic
if I,
Party?
and I know you can't run as independent. You don't get anywhere. So if I were to be selected and I were to run, I would be running as a Democrat.
Is that a change from what you've been most recent? I mean, is this a change at all? Because you said you were both either a liberal, a Republican, or...
It's an issue on the local level. This is where I'm middle of the road. On national level, it's a different story.
Okay, so you would go as a Democrat?
I'd be Democrat on both,
Okay.
but I'm just that's just I think Democrat and Republican at the local level is a little bit less pronounced than when you get at the national level. That's why I was trying to differentiate the two.
My question
I'm sorry.
Everybody's taking each other's
Can I
questions.
just say?
I was gonna steal her
I have
question.
the question I also have is, how do you see the differentiation in terms of boundaries and limitations of power and that power struggle between supervisor and manager? How do you see that being protected and better defined through the policy governance?
Again, because it clearly spells out the specific roles of the supervisor. It specifically spells out the roles of the manager and what happens if there's that crossover. What remedies the manager would have to say, wait a minute, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a supervisor, it could be any of the ones, so it could be anyone's. It's like, no, I think your request is, it's not applicable because you're crossing over the boundaries of what the management team should be doing. And so I think it spells it out and it gives the manager the ability to say, Township Board, I have an issue with this right here, and let's go from there. But it doesn't have to be related just to the supervisor. It could be any of the elected officials.
Thank you.
Okay, I got two questions for you.
Yes, sir.
In policy governance, it talks manager, management team. What's the difference?
Mark is the township manager. Management team would be the elected supervisor, clerk, and treasurer. So that would be, that's weight because each of you have statutory responsibilities in which a manager cannot do. So that's why the wording was, I think we had a lot of discussion when it was first drawn up on, it's not just manager. Some of it is applicable to just manager, but there's also one that's applicable to the management team. So that would encompass the four of you in those positions.
Appendix C.
Yes.
Okay. Second question. What do you see as the greatest challenge for Union Township moving forward?
I would say the greatest challenge is controlling, I don't want to say controlling the growth in that it's a negative, but like what you're looking at is a smart growth, where you have existing water and sewer, getting those areas developed first, if at all possible. Getting, I would, getting the water and sewer system, you're very fortunate that you've got a very good and modern system. So you don't have to worry about a lot of lead pipes, you don't have to worry about that. So that's not an issue, but I know next Monday, you'll be meeting with the city on the water study. So it's just making sure that the water, if there's any agreement, that it's done without, to both benefits and stuff like that. So, and then I guess the biggest concern I would have is the sidewalks. I would, drove by, went to go get gas down there, and I saw that they're running on M20, and they must be doing a 5K or something. And so they were running on M20, then turning left on the Lincoln down there, and they're running on the shoulder of a busy road. So it's sidewalks. I think it's vital for a community like this that's growing and has 13,000 residents. I think it's needed.
Going with Kim's question, were you thinking about running as a trustee in the future?
Yes, if selected, I'd definitely be running in 20 for trustee.
All right. Any further questions? I think our time's up anyway, so thank you, Brian.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Next up, Brian with Y, Mr. Melky. Brian with a Y.
I have to say, I'm not nervous too often in Township Hall, but I have to admit this afternoon that's knots in my stomach. But I would like to thank all the residents for being here. Being involved in local government is critical, and I believe in that. I want to thank the management staff for all the commitment and service that they provide our community. The Board of Trustees, your commitment and service to your community. You put yourself out there, and I appreciate anyone that runs or wants to serve the community the way that you do. And I also like to thank all the applicants too, because you all stepped up. It takes something to do that. So thanks for wanting to serve your community. As you know, I serve on the Planning Commission as Vice Chair. I've been in the Planning Commission since I think 2010. I love the Planning Commission. It's a lot of fun. I've also served on the EDA for a couple years prior to being elected to the Board of Trustees, and I'm currently the Vice Chair of the ZBA. I did run for office 3 times, and all 3 times I won Union Township, so I think I do have some support from the electorate in Union Township. I did serve with 2 of the members here, Trustee Rice and Trustee Lannon, and Trustee Micus, who I was very saddened to hear about his resignation. I think the Township is going to miss him. He was a wise soul, and I think he did a great service to our community. I've stayed engaged in Union Township government for nearly 10 years now. It's because I love my community. I believe in a government of and by and for the people. That means get involved in your government. And I chose to do that because I love my community. It's where I chose to live. It's where I choose to live. It's where I chose to raise my family. I plan on staying. My love for my community is why I do serve our local government in so many different roles that I have. My primary values that I've had while serving are good governance, ethics, and transparency. It's truly been an honor to participate in my community and make it a better place to work, play, and live. If given the opportunity tonight, I look forward to working with each of you and collaborating to make Union Township an even better home for all of us. I pride myself in researching and learning what I need to know to make informed decisions, and my experience would allow me to contribute to this board tomorrow. I understand that whomever you choose is not an elected official, but rather an appointed official. I feel it's important that the one you choose jump in and continue the path that you set. I do need to get a little wonky for a minute. My wife said don't get wonky. But I have to speak to policy governance, and I was glad to hear Brian Smith address some of what he did. Policy governance is probably the single most important act that this township board has taken in the last 2 decades. Number one, policy governance limits corruption by elected officials by limiting the power of any one individual on the board and making it more operate as a democratic process. Every board member is equal. It serves as a check and balance. Policy governance encourages the township daily operations to be run by qualified public administration, rather than a select elected officials who are not necessarily normally trained in this kind of stuff. Policy governance discourages the board from micromanaging and encourages the board to be more visionary and governed by setting a policy for the township manager and staff to implement. Policy governance by no means is perfect. That's why there's always a need for the board to clearly define the boundaries between the board and the manager. And it's critical, and Brian mentioned this too, so thank you. It's critical that the board effectively and actively monitor the manager of the township. While being a trustee is often a thankless job, it's very rewarding, trust me. I found it very rewarding when I served. It is an amazing feeling to work with others and make decisions to make something safer or improve quality of life or whatever it is, and to see those benefits almost overnight. And Bluegrass would be my example, Brian. To see those first sidewalks go in, I celebrated. The work that you do for all of us is hugely rewarding, and I hope I get the opportunity to join you in making Union Township a place where people want to stay and make their roots. Thanks for giving me your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
And who would like to ask a question of Mr. Milky?
Well, Brian, we're going to hire on a economic development director. Do you think that someone from the management team, one of the clerk, treasurer, or supervisor, should be involved in that interview process?
I do.
Thank you.
Absolutely, yeah, I do.
Well, I'm happy to hear that.
I guess I'll go with my running question. In the future, would you consider running for trustee with either if you are voted in now or if not?
I would consider it. I've made no decision.
Right,
Um,
right.
I mean, I can't say. It's absolutely a possibility, but I have not made a decision, yay or nay, on that.
Okay.
I'll hit Tim's question. But I would run as a Democrat.
Brian, you indicated you're not generally nervous in the township.
Generally not, but tonight I have to admit I am.
So I'm just curious as to what you would interpret your nervousness to tonight.
I'm not sure, to be honest. You're all a little intimidating. I'm not sure I can attribute it, because I'm okay with whatever you decide. I think hearing from some of the applicants here, and we have to hear from Mr. Terry, is that how you pronounce your name? Yeah? Did I say it right? Say it?
Depends on what side of the family, right, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited that you have some good applicants, so if I'm not chosen tonight, I will continue to hopefully serve on the Planning Commission and the ZBA, so I don't feel like I'm at any loss, no matter what happens tonight.
So
Not
you
a great
shouldn't be
answer.
nervous.
So, Brian, what do you think that you would come as, on day one, come into this board? What do you think you would contribute to help deal with our issues and problems that we as a board are facing?
I don't know necessarily all the problems that, I mean, I purposely have avoided the Board of Trustees as a planning commissioner. I feel when you serve on these boards, you lose your voice as a resident because you're now representing the township. And so I kind of tried to stay out of your business as much as I could. So I'm not sure what all the challenges are as a board.
So what are the attributes that you feel though you bring to the board?
I think based on past experience working on a board that was much more split when I served 2012 to 2016, is working together. one thing I was proud of, and I think Brian spoke to this a little bit too, in that, sorry to keep referencing you, is that, at a local level, party doesn't mean a lot. A lot of the ideology that our two-party system brings at the national level doesn't come to play in local politics, and it shouldn't. I do agree that it is a partisan, it's a political body, but I believe in working with anybody that wants to solve problems, and I think my assets as a trustee are in helping collaborate and negotiate and bring consensus.
Thanks.
Okay. 2 questions. Policy governance, do you believe it should be followed as it is written?
No. Yes, as written, should it be updated? Absolutely. I think you have to follow it as written because that is your guide right now. But it should always, it's a living document. And one of the things you find with policy governance is, and the city struggles with this too in a very similar model, is that you see some of the conflict that happens naturally between the manager, who is the CEO of the staff, and the board. And you have to continually push back and forth to have the proper boundaries. So if a manager oversteps their bounds, it's up to the board to make sure to realign those boundaries. You have to be active in looking at that document and making it a better document for this township, because every township's unique. I don't know if I answered your question, Ben.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. So what do you feel is the greatest challenge for this township moving forward?
This is when I wish I would have gone first. I think Mr. Bacon had a great answer, but smart growth is really it. This is a fast-growing township. You can have growth, but have it not necessarily be a positive thing for your community. We all want to live here, I hope, in 20 years from now. We all want to enjoy the place we live. And to have that happen, you have to have a good plan and follow the plan. And that's tough because it's hard to turn down huge investment in a township, but if it doesn't meet your plan, you got to be careful. So I think that's the biggest challenge, is smart growth. I do think sidewalks are another issue. We are fortunate as a township, I'm giving you 3 answers out of 1. As a growing township, we're very blessed with a healthy budget. Because of that, we have large revenue sharing coming from the state. And one of the challenges that I felt we had on our board, and I think I sensed that from this board as well, is that there's a large fund balance. And so are we overtaxing or underserving? And as a trustee, your number one primary statutory responsibility is fiduciary responsibility, which means save the money. But in the same sense, if you're not spending the tax dollars you're collecting, you're underserving your residents. And so I think it's very important to keep that rainy day fund, but spend down to that rainy day fund so that you're providing for your residents and businesses.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? All right. Thank you, Brian.
Thanks for the time.
You're welcome. Hitting cleanup tonight is Jim Thering. Jim, want to come up?
Good evening. My name is James Thering. I'm here to express my interest in the vacant position on the Union Township Board of Trustees. I have a passion for service to my community, and I'd like to do that as a member of the Board of Trustees. I've had the honor and opportunity to be a part of the Sacred Heart Academy School Board for 6 years, 4 union contract negotiations spanning 14 years, Union Township Board of Review for 6 years, 8 years owning my own business, and 25 years with Coca-Cola as a service technician. I have learned from these experiences to respect your committee, be a good listener, understand the goal, and be open-minded. I would consider it an honor to be on the Board of Trustees. This board is about being proactive, and I would like to continue or contribute to the decision-making that promotes business and residential growth while respecting our agricultural community. Generate ideas for citizens to enjoy walking, biking, and running pathways. Encourage improvements to our parks and roads, and to do my best so that all citizens represented.
Thank you, Jim. All right, start with questions.
James, you said you've got some experience with contract negotiations. Do you feel that a board member should be present for contract negotiations with employees?
I think it'd be a good idea, yeah. Another set of eyes, ears, you know, it's all about producing a good outcome for everyone. It's not just for the union employees, but also the town.
Thank you.
Jim, we can be, as a board and as individuals, sometimes we're very, get very passionate about our ideas and our things we want to see happen and the issues that are at stake. How do you see yourself coming to a vote? What's the internal process, and how will you utilize others in terms of formulating your vote for whatever you need to be deliberating on the particular issue here?
The facts. What are the facts before us? You know, for example, if we're talking about roads or sidewalks, what is the biggest need? If it's a little bit more serious, if it's more budget oriented, you know, it's based on. I like to base things on as much fact as I possibly can, and then from there I go to my conscience. You know, that's my biggest checks and balances. Is at night, what can I sleep with, knowing did I make the best decision? In talking with the other board members, I think very good dialogue between all of the board members is what helps come together to make a good decision that will hopefully have the outcome that we've all intended it to be.
Thanks.
James, you indicate you were a business owner,
I
small
was.
business owner
Yep.
operator.
Yeah.
I imagine you enjoyed some successes, encountered challenges.
Oh yeah.
Through that experience as a business owner, I'd be interested to listen to what you thought was the best part for you as a business owner. What you learned, what you enjoyed, what you experienced, and how some of those successes would translate into a trustee.
You know, man, you couldn't have asked a better question as far as I'm concerned for me. The business that I had was one that I think a lot of people would like to have. It was called Draft Beer Services, and I serviced draft systems in bars and restaurants, but I serviced, maintained, and installed. That's a big moneymaker. That's a big moneymaker for any restaurant or bar. You know, foam is profit loss, liquid is profit gain. I took great pride in never requiring any type of contract with any of my customers. It was a handshake, and it was, if you feel that I'm not servicing you the way you need to be serviced, you just let me know and I'll walk away. And I never had anybody ask me to not come back. So as far as the reward, I don't quite have, I don't know if I'm answering every part of your question, but that's how that would transition into the board. Did you ask that as well?
Mm-hmm.
Just the experiences that you gained.
Well, I feel that type of an attitude that I'm willing to back what I say and do the work that's required to do my part on this board, or my job is, I'm willing to step up and do what's required of me.
Thanks. And again, if this was an election as opposed to an appointment, would you list yourself as a Republican or as a Democrat?
I would list myself as a Democrat, but I have always voted based on the person. So I have voted Republican based on the person and what they stand for. I vote Democrat. I vote my conscience. If I am forced to put something down, that's what I would put down. But when it comes to an election, Mr. Houck is a Republican. I voted for Mr. Houck, but I voted for the man.
I'm outnumbered no matter what happens here.
So I let him put a sign in my yard. You know, I vote my conscience. I vote for who I feel is the best man or woman for the job over party. That to me, that's irrelevant.
Thank you, James.
Thank you. Other questions?
Me or no? Oh, is this something you would pursue in the future?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You know, it's been you know, stepping stone. You know, from the school board, the contracts. You know, that's over a lot of years. I'm a fresh face. You know, I have no preconceived notions on anything. I do not have an agenda on anything. So I'm open and you know, willing to learn. You know, you've all talked about the governance policy, and I have read it, and I will not claim to know every little thing there is to know about it. But I am dedicated to learning and will accept it as written.
Would you, so like I asked everybody else, are you going to consider running for trustee
Is-
on the next
Oh,
election?
I just
Because
asked
you
that,
just
yeah.
asked
Yeah,
that,
yep,
So that's
yep.
why I wasn't
I
gonna
stole
say
your question,
anything.
okay.
That's okay. Yeah.
So-
Again, yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Would
so-
that's the, you know, the whole point of being here.
All right, James, I'm going to ask you the question I've asked everybody, is what do you feel is the greatest challenge for Union Township moving forward?
You know, Ben, I honestly cannot answer that, not being as familiar with the Board of Trustees. I am familiar with the township. Obviously, we see as we drive down our roads and sidewalks, as the other gentlemen have talked about, but you know, I'm not going to claim that as my own. I'm like I said, I'm a fresh face, so I'm ready to go. As far as challenges, I can't honestly tell you what I would consider a challenge. I'm sure all of you probably could make a list a mile long, but once that list gets written, I'm willing to do the work that it takes to put the time in, even outside of the board, obviously, is necessary, I'm sure, to fulfill my obligation so that I come back with a fact-based, educated decision.
All right, very good. Any further questions for Mr. Thering? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that ends the presentations portion. And we move on our agenda to item 7, which is going to be public comment. This is going to be restricted to 3 minutes regarding items on this agenda. This is not a question and answer period. So you may feel free to come up and state an opinion, but don't expect an answer back from us. So if anyone would like to come forward, they're welcome to. Yeah, there we go.
Sorry. First person. Someone's got to break the ice. All right, my name is Steve Swaney. I'm Isabella County Commissioner, District 6. So some of my constituents are here in Union Township, so I'll be just kind of representing them. And by no means am I telling you what to do. I'm just saying my constituents voted for Milkus, and most of my constituents lean very Democratic, and I think on the presentation here, they would support 2 of the people who are Democratic and have very good, or I would say the best, backgrounds for this and experience. So,
Thank you. Hi. State your name, please.
I'm Paul Begard. I am a property owner in Union Township. I'm here to just ask for you to seriously consider the candidacy of James Thering. It's great to see that there's some Sacred Heart School Board representation here this evening. That's where I got the chance to know James and his decision-making. You asked him the question of what it's like to run his own business and how he felt doing that. If I could add a little bit to that, is I've seen James in his decision-making mode, and we've had breakfast a number of times, we've sat in a lot of meetings together, and we've had conversations over the phone. it's the people behind the result of that decision that is who he's concerned about. A lot of boards do things because you've done it that way in the past, or it's always been done that way, or it's been that way since this happened. James always looks at the people behind that decision, what that result of that decision is, how it's going to affect them. So, again, I would think he's got an open mind when he comes to each and every meeting. He's not going to have an agenda, and he's going to listen. So, good luck.
Thank you.
My name is John Dinsey. I'm a resident of Union Township. I was on this board from 2008 to 2012, so I have a little bit of a historical perspective, and I just want to say that in 2008, for the first time, Democrats were elected to control this body, 6 Democrats out of 7 elected individuals, and when we came in, we had, as a group, a very team-oriented approach. We were on the same wavelength, so I think it is important to have, party is important in the sense that when people are in the same party, they share same values. We had a very progressive outlook. We implemented policy governance. We implemented computerization, updated software. We had a forensic accountant come in and found out there had been embezzlement. We hired for the first time a township manager. And we also, we had initiatives in sustainability, and we had initiatives in walkability and bikeability of the community, working with Mount Pleasant and so on. And personally, I got involved with the dog park, which became a project involving a private group, the city, and the township. The reason I'm bringing all this up is that I see Brian Milkey as a continuation of the kinds of foundation that we laid. And it's very important to me that that tradition, I don't know, maybe it isn't long enough to call it a tradition, but that trend in the township continued. He was very early on, we got to know Brian as a member of the DDA, and then he got more deeply involved. He got more involved in the Democratic Party, which this township is a Democratic township. And I just think, not taking anything away from the other candidates, they're all, I think, qualified. But I think Brian is the most outstanding candidate for the reasons that I stated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jessica Lapp. I'm a Union Township resident. I live just up the road here. I'm really impressed by the candidates tonight. I'm so excited that all of these people are stepping forward now, and I hope more of them step forward, and they continue to step forward in the future for other elected offices. Tonight, my feeling is that this was, the seat was held by Phil Mikas for 3 terms. He was elected as a Democrat, and I think it's very important to replace him at the will of the voters with someone who has a Democratic record here in the county. Then I do think in the next election, then the voters again can make their choices based on the variety of candidates we have here who all seem, I'm pretty excited. It does seem like any decision could be a good one for you guys tonight. But personally, I'm very supportive of Brian Milkey based on his record, based on his background within the township, and I hope you'll consider his application. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to come forward at this point?
I am Michael Haven. I'm a resident of Union Township. I just live down the road this way. I've came here to just voice my support for Brian Milkey to fill the appointment. I feel he has been a very strong voice for the township. He has taken to heart a lot of the needs of the people that live here, and for many years now, and I feel he would be able to just jump right in and be a good advocate for this, to fill this term, and at the end of the term, just come what may. But I feel just he'd be the right person to just fill the remainder of this term. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else like to come forward?
Benny, we also have some correspondence from emails from residents, which I think should be shared as well, and to have them on record.
Okay.
Do you want to do that, or?
Have you got them printed out?
If you have, you can read them. Do you have them printed out?
I can go on my email here too.
Yeah, I have them on the emails.
Oh, those,
I have a Brian Clark.
Okay. All right. Let's see.
And then a Ruth Hellwig.
Hellwig.
And then Doug LaBelle, I think, sent her a letter too.
All right. This one is from Brian Clark. Hello, Union Township Board of Trustees. Thank you for your work and service to the Union Township. Many of, I'm thinking you have day jobs, so taking on this added responsibility is appreciated. As a Union Township voter, I realize that a special election could be costly, and therefore look to you to appoint a candidate for the vacancy. As any appointment is very important, I would like to point out that the voters elected Phil Micus, a Democrat, and hope that you appoint a Democrat to fill this position. Without an election, you can't tell who the voters would select. We do know that the voters selected a Democrat. Based on that information, I encourage you to appoint a Democrat to replace Mr. Micus to honor the voters of Union Township who voted for Phil Micus. Regards, Brian Clark. And 2218 Wheat Ridge Meadows Drive. Next one would be from Ruth Hellwig. As a resident of Union Township, I have been following the vacancy left by the resignation of Phil Micus from the Union Township Board. It is my understanding that 5 individuals have expressed interest in this seat. I urge the board to appoint a Democrat to the vacant position. The citizens of Union Township have voted for 12 years, including the last election, to have a Democrat in this seat. Appointing someone from a different political party goes against the voting preference of the citizens of Union Township. I urge you, as elected officials who should be representing the citizens of this township, to vote in a way that is consistent with the citizens who elected Mr. Micus. The second alternative is to hold a special election and allow the citizens to make the choice. This is from Ruth Hellwig. Lastly, we have correspondence from Doug LaBelle II. Union Township Trustees. I recently heard about the resignation of Trustee Micus, which will occur at the end of this month. I would like to nominate James Thering for the vacated seat. I have served on the Union Township Board of Review for the past few years with him, and he has been a pleasure to work with. He always comes prepared and is dedicated to the residents of our township. He would definitely be a great addition as a trustee. Hope you will consider him. Thanks, Doug LaBelle, II. And that's all of our correspondence, I believe, isn't it?
Yep, I believe so.
Okay. All right, so that, unless somebody else wants to get up for public comment, that will close public comment. And we'll move on to our agenda, on to item 8. List of boards and commissions. I did have a conversation with a former member of the Sustainability Committee, by a gentleman by the name of Jay Kahn. And unfortunately, he came into my store for an ice cream cone and left, committing to the fact that he would fill Mr. Micus's vacancy on the Sustainability Committee. So, yay. People have got to learn not to come in. So I would expect his application in shortly if it hasn't been already received. So that's good news, because we've been trying to fill these empty positions on the sustainability, which, by the way, for people that are watching, we still have one more vacancy, I believe, on sustainability, and it's really an important committee. And so, moving forward, if you could consider looking into one of those vacancies, that'd be great. We do have another one that we need to discuss, and this is going to be a recreational authority representative. And we currently have, is that?
Committee, not
Committee, yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah. it's rec-
a study committee.
Study committee, I'm sorry. And so currently we have our township manager as one of those people, and we would be looking for a trustee to fill that second slot. I'm assuming, I think in your correspondence, that they're going to be having a meeting shortly.
We'll be looking to schedule one now that the Kalamazoo Public Schools, or I'm sorry, Mount Pleasant, has agreed through resolution to appoint 2 members to the committee as well. So there's the schools, the city, and the township.
Okay.
We're looking to get that scheduled, and the township needs to appoint a second member.
All right. And then, do we know, time commitment wise, if this is a once a month meeting, a once every 2 weeks?
We really don't know yet because the committee has not been formed. It is a study committee. My guess, the way these things kind of go normally, is I would assume a couple meetings a month initially for the first 3 meetings or so, first 3 months. And then probably task some consultants. The 3 entities have set aside money to go out and do some of the nitty-gritty work. So there wouldn't be a lot of meetings maybe during that time. But I would guess within 6 months, the committee would be wanting to make a recommendation regarding their thoughts on the authority to the 3 boards.
Gotcha. All right. So I hope that helps clarify with you folks, what we'd be looking at as far as a commitment is concerned.
One suggestion might be that since each of us have a board assignment or committee assignments outside of here as well, maybe the new appointee would then, as of now, not have any assignments to any place. Maybe that would be the person that we may want to consider to be the board member, if they so choose.
Well, I'm going into the next 6 months for me are going to be, I don't have as much of a commitment.
Oh.
So, I would be available. Once I get into spring and summer, fall, early fall at least, I'm impossible. But, through the wintertime, I would have free time.
That's fine.
So I'd be willing to jump into that position.
I'm bored out, so
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
I don't want to be on another one.
yeah. I'd volunteer for that.
I don't know how long this study committee will go, but whomever steps up and time commitment that is involved, if it does happen to get into your busy time, then that creates a problem. You have the background information and it's continuing on, and that might be tough for you. Not opposed to you accepting that position. Norm's idea is good. I do know another board member has offered to put in that time as well. So we got options.
Okay.
So we don't have to do that
It's
tonight?
all depending on the day. Like, I can't, it depends.
Okay.
Because I have so many things going on. It all depends on the time.
So we don't have to do that
The
tonight,
committee-
but just
the
so we...
committee itself is going to decide these kind of things. It's going to decide how often you meet, when you meet, and those kinds of things. It just cannot be decided beforehand because it's the committee. that's
Right,
gonna
right, you
make
got to see who's,
But the committee does need to get started on its work. And I believe the public schools have assigned their 2 people. The city has assigned their 2. And we've assigned 1. So we just need to assign somebody.
I'm willing to do it. Like I said, I've got EDA and I've got board meetings, and then my business, I'm pretty free for the next 5-6 months. So, I'd be happy to do it.
I'll support your
Somebody should make a
nomination.
all right, you know,
Okay. All right.
anybody wants to volunteer, good by me.
Yeah. All right.
It is a little change. We talked about looking for an interested citizen of the township. But after additional consideration and how the board appeared to be laying out, it came back to saying, deciding probably should have a board member. So thanks for stepping up.
You want to vote on it, you guys, or we just
Yeah.
head nod, or what?
Made the motion for himself, or
I'm not sure. But
I seconded his motion.
you can't motion yourself, so.
Why?
I'm available.
I nominate Ben Gunn.
You guys take her from there.
I'll second Bill's motion.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any discussion? You gotta say that, I'm sorry.
What's that? Oh, we need a discussion.
Okay. Have fun.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. No, it's an important, it's a nice committee.
And now we have to have a vote.
Okay, all right. So this would be all in favor of assigning me to the Recreation Authority Committee? Okay.
Yes.
Say aye.
Aye.
I'll vote for myself, nay. And opposed? Okay, so, all right, so we move past that, and we move to item 8B, which is going to be Planning Commission and ZBA updates. Lisa Cody's going to be bringing that update to us.
Okay, at the ZBA met in September to approve the minutes from August ZBA meeting. The new business, there was no new business on the agenda. The Planning Commission met twice in September, one special meeting for the new zoning ordinance and one monthly regular meeting. The Planning Commission held a public hearing at the regular meeting for a special use application for a filling station in a B4, B5 district. The Planning Commission has recommended approval of the filling station located on the corner of Isabella and Broomfield Road on a condition that a site plan is approved and the state license be obtained. A Dunkin' Donuts with a drive-through has been proposed as part of the development. During both the special and the regular meeting, the Planning Commission has completed review of sections 1 through 10. The remaining sections 11 through 15 are scheduled for October to be reviewed for the zoning.
Any questions for Lisa at all? You did fine, thank you. Let's see. Board member reports. Tim, you always have a lot to add, and that's going to start with you.
Thanks, Supervisor Gunning. Yeah, I attended the Isabella County Board of Commissioners regular meeting that was on September 17th. And at that meeting, they were working through to approve their fiscal year 2020 budget. And I happen to have a draft proposed budget that came through. But it is an interesting process to watch this year as different fund sources that they were looking at utilizing to balance their fund started out initially with the recommendation to utilize funds that's under the control of the treasurer, which is the revolving, let me think about that for a second, the delinquent tax fund, that's a revolving fund. And that was the plan, but a commissioner brought up the idea that maybe we should look at another alternative, and a motion was made to actually not utilize as large amount out of that fund, but use some money out of that, some money out of the general fund, some money out of fund balance, and that was approved to make that budget happen. So it was very interesting to observe that commission in work to come up with their budget, and I will place this in the trustee's office. Also, things that went on at that meeting were the county is going to hire an additional deputy for the sheriff's department, have an additional officer on the street. They did have to go to a step higher than generally they would offer an officer, but times seem to be good as far as folks who want to work, and it took a little more money to get an officer to commit, and that was well and good. Also, there was a resolution that was passed to express opposition to the termination of a state contract, which is a regional entity of the mental health department, which deal with behavioral health services and mental health care, and opt to go to a private provider of those services. So the board created a resolution and sending that to the state, demonstrating their opposition to privatizing that area. And as is done every year, there were a number of individual services that were renewed in a contract to help the county, and some of those are a registered nurse for the Commission on Aging, the drivers who deliver the Meals on Wheels program, also a number of people that provide activity services through the Commission on Aging, as well as a person who works with their newspaper as the editor. And that's the takeaway from that meeting. Also, I attended the September 18th Isabella County Township's Council of Governance meeting, and oftentimes they have someone to come in and do a presentation. And this was really an interesting presentation from a fellow named Carl Ostowski.
His last name's hard.
He happens to be in economic development, working for Huron and Sanilac County, where there is a fair number of windmill farms that have been in operation for, a decade plus. And what's so interesting about that for Isabella County, and why the townships wanted to hear about it, is there's the possibility of the state's largest windmill farm coming to Isabella County. So he was able to bring considerable perspective on how the financials work on that, how depreciations work, dictation, dictation, is that the word?
Depreciation.
How you're going to utilize your land potentially, dictate to you how you may use your land. And brought a lot of insight about public utilities and private energy providers that was well worth the time spent. And last night right here, a number of the board members were able to learn a little bit more about the cost of services and the financial planning for our proprietary services of water and wastewater, and how to understand if your rate structure is appropriate, if your cost of operating those services, and what you have set aside for future improvements, expansions, as well as day-to-day operations are at an appropriate level. And the gal was quite a, well, she's nationally known as far as creating the spreadsheets and putting in information that helps you to understand and ensure that the township will maintain the highest quality of product and have this reliability in the system. So that was a really interesting thing. We thought it was going to be a little bit of a dry topic, but it was exciting. So those were my
Can I say
meetings.
something right after? I want to ping off of his, if I can.
Sure.
I'm done. Ping away.
Okay, so with that meeting being done, there's another meeting that it's a joint with the city, and it's September 30th at 6 PM at the City Hall. And I urge every board member to attend because it has some really good information.
And the meeting's about what, Lisa?
Yeah, the water. Joint
About water?
The joint water with Mount
Yes.
Pleasant.
Water Authority?
Yeah.
Yes.
Water Authority.
Bill?
I attended a road commission meeting on the 12th. There's another one tomorrow night. They talked about all the projects that they've completed. They've had many projects that they've completed now that the seasons are changing. Gravel roads are done, all their ditch mowing's done, grader ditching's done. Talked about a few bridge projects that are pretty much completed. They figured they'd be done before their next meeting. Pickard Street down here was 73% complete, the bridge, or Pickard Road. That was on the 12th, so it's probably more now. One of the main things we talked about, or that they talked about, was there's a traffic count down here on the corner of Baseline and Lincoln. It's been a problem intersection for this area. It's kind of cool to listen to some of the stuff that they were able to tell off those traffic counts. The average speed, and I live on Baseline Road, so I'm kind of biased to this. The average speed at that intersection when people are going through it is 63.8 miles an hour.
Wow.
From 5 to 7 a.m. and p.m., the average speed is close to 70 miles an hour.
Wow.
And they wonder why there's accidents. Well, the road commission really can't do anything, it all goes on what the state police say about putting people are requesting a four-way stop. Well, there has to be studies done and everything to have that happen. I mean, Bob might be able to say a little more on it, but it's just interesting to hear all that stuff. They were also awarded a state safety award for like the 7th year in a row. And they were one of only 3 counties in the state to have that. So that was pretty cool to hear. So that's all I have. As far as that Council of Governments meeting, I was at that with Tim. That was very interesting about the windmills. That guy is very knowledgeable. So.
Question, Bill, do we have any potholes left in the township, or did you get those all taken care of?
We can find one or
I
two.
don't know.
We're working on them every day.
Treasurer Rice?
Sidewalks and Pathways Prioritization Committee hasn't met yet, but I also was at the meeting last night, and it was phenomenal. She did a wonderful job explaining things, really easy to follow and understand. So a lot of questions that people have had were answered, and so, yeah,
All right.
great meeting.
Norm?
I was at the meeting last night too, and I didn't think utilities could be so interesting, but they were, so we all did all that. In terms of the 2% grant, that comes, the application is due on the 30th of September this month, and the distribution for the 2% will be distributed on 11/21. So I'm going to I'd like on our next board meeting, I want to put on the agenda the projects which were discussed with the tribe as to those that look potentially fundable, collaborative, and things that they certainly would like to see as well. But I think I have a list here of about, there'd be at least approximately, we have about 4 to 6 projects that I think are really fundable, 2 of which I spoke directly with a couple of folks on the tribal council, and that was their suggestion, along with someone from the Renaissance School. A couple other projects are things that I took from our lists that you had all submitted and talked about that as well. The problem was that we couldn't get any of those things, we can't do those things now because, we need a feasibility study for most of them. We need engineering projects. We have to
Right.
get a cost analysis and funding. We have to look at collaborative involvement. So consequently, we had a couple of projects, two things that I did present to them as well on that list that seemed fundable, even though one of them was already accomplished, the defibrillators. But it was for safety issues, and they felt that was a continuation of what we've been doing with the ballparks in the improvement, going back to the grant from last spring, and also for the, right now, the fire hydrants. So those are ones that could be funded most immediately, but the others are all things that we as a board need to take to do this sooner. If we're going to pick out some projects that we think that we'd really like to see be done, we can't wait until the month before because we're never going to get the costs and the engineering study and all that stuff done. So what I'd like to do at our next board meeting, I'd like to have an opportunity to tell you what were the projects I discussed, see what you think as to ones we would like to perhaps go ahead and fund, and then we can do the work we have to do. So when we submit it for the spring 2%, I think we can do a lot more than what we're doing right now. So,
Norm, can we have those in our packet next time, so maybe we can prioritize them before we come?
okay, I'll make sure I get something tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, I think that'd make,
okay,
it'd probably save a lot of discussion.
okay, sounds good. I will get that to Mark. Good
Thank you.
idea, yeah.
All right. That closes that portion of our meeting. We move on to item 9, which is consent agenda.
Lisa haven't?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, she already did. Yeah, she jumped in on, after Tim. She jumped in out of order. That's all right. We let her do it. What's that? Oh, I don't have anything. We didn't have an EDA, so, no. Okay, so moving on to item 9, consent agenda.
I'll make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Who was our checker of records?
This was my month to review the warrants, and I found everything to be in order.
All right. So we do have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda approved. And we move into the fun portion of the evening. Item 10, new business. Item A is going to be consider voting on candidates to fill the unexpired trustee vacancy with a term ending 11/20 of 2020. I want to say, first of all, thanks for everybody stepping up. I mean, good for, sometimes it's like pulling teeth getting people to want to volunteer, but, you guys might regret it, whoever gets involved in this whole thing, but it's rewarding nonetheless.
I would make a motion
Yeah.
that we do vote on a candidate tonight for the unexpired trustee vacancy to end with the term of 11/20/2020.
I'll support that.
All right, do we have a motion and a second?
Discussion on that is, I would just like to mention, as Jessica Lapp observed, we have 5 citizens who qualify, just from the mere presence of being a resident of the township, you qualify. But these 5 folks don't qualify at the minimal level. This is an elevated group. Each one of these 5 individuals, I believe, are currently serving on, as an appointment, a board, or a commission of the township right now. So that is, talks volumes about the group we have. Of course, I wish we had 5 seats. In November of 2020, maybe those 5 people will be sitting here and will be gone. Opportunity is out there for each of them. But we can only choose one person to fill the vacancy to get us through one more year till the next election. And it'd be my position to try to pick in each of our minds who could do that seamlessly. And beyond that, thank you all for putting in your applications.
I'd like to piggyback off of what you said, Tim. I too would like to thank all the candidates, all four of you that were here tonight, along with Taylor as well, who wasn't able to attend, just for your willingness to pitch in and make a contribution with your time and effort. It's not an easy thing to do. You have jobs outside of here, and this isn't always the easiest or the most appreciated work that you do. So the fact that you're stepping up, I want to really thank you for that. I was also struck with how qualified and how interested you all seemed in your presentations. So unfortunately, though, we have one seat that's available here, and I'm surprised that we're having as much involvement as we're having, but that being said, as we vote, I think it's important to realize, I don't know how we'll be doing this, but a vote against someone who is a candidate is not a reflection of your competence or your ability. That's not what's being judged here. What we're looking for, as Tim indicated, is to find the right individual for this point in time that fits into the board to fulfill the next 14 months of this board. And we want to do that in the most urgent way, because if we have a long learning curve for folks, that's going to make it really difficult for us as a board to, it still won't have like that additional member there. So again, I just want to thank everyone and just know that this is going to be a hard decision for all of us. And we certainly appreciate the fact that you're pitching and doing this. So thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone too. I've been through some difficult processes where people have left boards, left positions, and we've been on those boards having to fill those positions. I recall 3 times being on Sacred Heart School Board, losing in a 6-year period, we lost 3 principals. And this was a lot harder doing this tonight than doing that. So thank you for everyone that applied.
I'd also like to say thank you. This is one of the hardest decisions I've had being on this board, and it still is very difficult. I just gotta say thank you.
I'd just like to recognize Phil Micus again for the 11 years that he did serve on this board, elected to 3 terms. Thank you, Phil. He always served humbly, with integrity, and he voted his conscience and his heart. He loved to discuss and collaborate, but he always would vote as he thought was correct. As well as he had a wonderful sense of humor. And just to show you a quick picture of Phil that was taken recently. When I met Phil, he had shoulder-length hair, a full head of it. So,
This is what the board
be a
does.
little, be a little leery of what you vote for, maybe.
Watch what you wish for.
Watch what you wish for. No, Phil was a top-notch servant to the township, and we will miss him.
Well, I can say positives about all 5 of these people. Robert, I've been with Robert on the EDA now, and he always shows up every meeting, which in the EDA seems to be a challenge. But he's always there. We can always count on Robert Bacon being there, and he's always prepared. He's always asking pertinent questions. Taylor, I'm always impressed with Taylor. He's very young. He's very ambitious. He's involved in a lot of community activities and boards. Just a really solid young man who's got a bright future. Brian Smith, Brian, I know him from, I think when he was going to college and coming in and hitting buckets of balls. That's a long time ago. What, early 80s? Late,
Mid-80s.
mid-80s, yeah, that ages both of us. Brian Milkey, of course, I've known Brian for a long time, and I respect Brian and his belief system, and James Thering. I've had the pleasure of, now, was Nick your brother or cousin?
Brother.
That's your brother. And so Nick worked for me back in, 82, 83, something like that, at the golf center picking range balls. Adam, the son, worked for me. I always say Adam and Ben, when they come in, they're such well-behaved young men, and that's a reflection on the parents. So you guys did a fabulous job with those boys. And I've been serving with James on the board review. And I've always been impressed in the way that he deliberates. He's very conscientious, very honest gentleman. And so amongst the five, really, maybe we can separate it out by quarters or something and have each of you serve a quarter of Phil's time. But, boy, just thank you all for signing on to this. Any further discussion at this point?
We got a motion on the table
Right.
that we vote on a candidate tonight, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we have to vote on that, and then,
Right.
I don't know, go from there, I guess.
All right, so the motion on the floor is to vote for a candidate this evening. We have a second on that, correct?
Yep.
All right, so all in favor of voting on a candidate this evening to fill Phil Micus's term. This would expire 11/20 of 2020, and I did that without looking at my notes. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? So tonight we will vote on that appointment. I guess at this point, do we want any more further discussion? I'm not sure how we go about this. I know this is going to be a roll call vote.
Right, let's you do a roll call. I just want to respond to what some of the citizens were expressing this evening as to Phil Micus's seat. As we know, Phil served 3 terms, didn't quite finish this one, so he's been here for about 11 years, and he was elected through 3 different elections. And in the process of being elected in 3 elections, he was also elected as a Democrat. So that was something that was valued, as Bill was reelected as a Republican, I was elected as a Democrat, etc. As a board, we try our best, in most ways, to operate in a nonpartisan and an impartial manner. And I think it's necessary at a local level, that the politics shouldn't prevail. But when we were both in our candidacy and going for election, we ran with a party affiliation. And I think what the crowd was saying tonight is that affiliation matters. And we as a board also said that mattered sometime back when Tim indicated, when we talked about the MTA issue, should we be nonpartisan on the election, or should it be partisan? 6 all said partisan. It was only Tim that said nonpartisan. So we believe in our election process. So I do think I want to take into consideration what the citizens are saying, because Phil was elected not only for his good looks, but he was also elected because he was a Democrat. And that's been the seat that's been held now 3 consistent elections in a row. I want to flip it a little bit. If it were Bill that had resigned, I would be the first one that would adamantly be pushing that the person that fills that slot be a Republican. Because Bill was elected also, You know, again, he's known as a business person, partly maybe because people liked him, and maybe they thought he offers something.
Thanks,
on
Norm.
the board. I like you too. But it was also, it's a party affiliation, and that's what got him elected. So if it were Bill who had resigned instead of Phil, I would be pushing adamantly for that position be filled with a Republican. I would not vote for a Democrat for that position. So, because I think that we have to honor what the constituents have asked us to do. They're saying that when they went to the polls, they didn't just just pick out someone. They were deciding on someone both based on party and maybe based on your personality or your views. But with the party affiliation, with it comes a set of values. So they as a Democrat or as a Republican, you have a set of values that people are also voting you for. So I think that has to be taken into consideration tonight as well. Because I think to override the constituents on what we do tonight on this appointment, I think is a disservice to the community, and I think we should be very mindful of that. So,
I'd like to nominate a Democrat. They're all Democrats. I don't,
okay.
Norm, I don't believe in any of that stuff either. I mean, you and I had talks many times when we first got on this board. I don't look at it Republican or Democrat. I look at it, you vote with your conscience. You vote with what you feel best.
All right. Any further comments? All right, seeing none.
Yeah, this is,
So this will be a roll call vote. Clerk Cody, go ahead and start the process.
oh, you want me to nominate somebody and then start the process? 'Cause
I don't
that's how
think
you're
we can
supposed to do
nominate
it.
anybody. I think we need to just vote.
For what?
For
No.
I
what?
think we're voting for one of these openings, correct?
No,
Or do we-
we're nominating
already-
somebody. Somebody nominates somebody, somebody
Right, no.
second it, and then we do
Right,
a roll call
right.
vote.
We just
Already did
had a vote that we were gonna tonight pick someone, vote for someone for the seat. Now what we need to do
We
is
need
have a
nomination.
nomination for a candidate, and then we're gonna have to vote on that candidate and see if they pass or, and we have to go down the list, so. So now now it would be a nomination for for a particular person.
I'd like to nominate James Thering.
I'll support that, we can discuss that.
Okay, a motion and a support. All right,
Well, why do you feel that James Theron would be the best candidate?
I think he spoke very well of himself tonight. He had a couple of good references. I like that he's going to be independent. I've known James for a few years. He's a square shooter. I mean, if he tells me I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. I have to accept that. And he's not afraid to say something like that. I don't know.
I would just mention, Norm said, I think we need to go down the list. We need to go down the list as far as it takes, which one of us nominate someone and they secure the vote. So
Okay,
it
right.
could stop short of
Correct.
going through the list.
Yeah, okay, I understand.
Just for clarification.
Yeah, thanks, Tim, yeah, that's what I.
So should we have started with?
Yeah, you
No,
start.
that's not how it goes. He
No.
nominated him, I second it, and now we vote on it, and
I
then
didn't
if
say
that
that.
doesn't happen, then it's the next one.
That is,
You misinterpreted what we're just saying.
But don't go down the list, because it's like,
Well, I kind of figured how it should go too.
that is how
If
it
there's a
should go.
nomination.
So,
You
I mean-
made a nomination.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was the right way to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
But-
And then I seconded it.
Yeah.
So now do
And
we
then
vote?
we had
So
a
now we're
little
gonna vote on that.
discussion.
Right,
So now we're gonna roll call vote it,
right,
and then if it's,
right. We shouldn't go down the list saying, okay, the next person,
No,
like,
no, no.
yeah,
candidate
And then
A
No.
didn't get a
Okay.
second.
No, right,
Okay,
right, right.
that's how it is done.
yeah, yep, all right, so,
this is so difficult.
So, sure,
Yeah.
no.
I hate
Okay,
this.
so
Yeah.
let's just vote, okay?
all right, so the motion on the table is James Thering,
Yep.
all right?
I would just mention James took a lot of initiative. He had letters of support sent in. He appeared but did not speak at a previous board. And, you know, I believe he's a quality person. But
They all are.
just wanted to indicate that he put a lot of effort forth. He does indicate that he's, you know, a fresh face. But I do think the board is looking for somebody who's ready to start out running.
Okay,
Okay, so
so,
why don't we do a roll call?
so Supervisor Gunning,
Yes.
Treasurer Rice,
No.
Trustee Hauk.
Yes.
I almost said Mike, I'm so sorry. Trustee Lannan,
No.
Trustee Welly,
No.
Clerk Cody. I'm gonna say yes, but it's 3-3, it fails. And now I'd like to nominate somebody just to go next. Mr. Milky,
I'll second it.
now discussion.
I would like to read something about Brian. So back in 2016, maybe even before then, you know, Brian was the one that hooked me into getting involved in the Planning Commission. I think it was then, maybe it was 15. So I have him to blame for that. But anyway, in 16, I believe it was, I had come in to one of the Board of Trustee meetings just as a citizen to talk about Mr. Milky and about the things that I felt that he was contributing on the board. And I want to read what I said at that particular meeting regarding Brian. To me, Trustee Milky is the gold standard of governance in our township. He models and demonstrates for all of us the values and ethics we should all emulate. His attention to detail, knowledge and command of the facts, preparation, common sense, fair-mindedness, and most importantly, his uncompromising honesty and ethics are all second to none. Brian has stood up against corruption and impropriety throughout his career. He served close to 10 years of service on the Union Township boards and commissions as a trustee, planning commission, ZBA person. I know for a fact that Brian adheres to, supports, and will enhance our policy governance. He's been involved in the creation of the master plan. He's currently involved in the update of the master plan. He's in the update of the zoning ordinances, and he's someone that I feel that keeps abreast with the policies here, and I think that he would be a very suitable candidate. And again, I want to emphasize, there's 4 very good qualified people in this room tonight. But for me personally, I feel that Mr. Milky is the one who is best suited for this position, for the right person at the right time to fit into the slot for the next year's duration. So that being said, I definitely will be voting for a yes on that.
I just mentioned that. I've sat with Brian at this board for 4 years, and when you know something is tried and true and solid and good and prepared, as Brian always came to the board meetings, you know, depends on your risk tolerance. Everybody could do a good job, but for me, Brian's a no. As a solid trustee, so I think for the next 14 months, Brian Milky's a good selection.
I myself was at a big toss-up because he's on the planning commission with me, so, and he's very good on the planning commission, so it's kind of, It's really hard, so it's like, do I, yeah, I still have to think about that one.
It's
If,
your
if
decision.
that one,
It's your
yes, comes
decision.
up, but, just saying, but he's really good, brings a different perspective to things that I wouldn't have normally thought about.
Well, you know, this throws a big burden on me, because now all of a sudden I'm looking
We'll see.
at 2 empty seats I gotta fill.
But we still have to do a roll call vote.
You know, if
Just
that
to make
happens,
sure.
then I gotta wait for somebody else to come in for ice cream, or
Well,
or
keep
go
on
to the
serving
grocery
ice
store and
cream.
hang around the soup aisle or something, I don't know.
Keep on serving ice cream.
Yeah.
Well, I know, you know, I've known Brian, you know, for a while. My husband used to work for him, and so I got to know him a little bit there. And, you know, then my husband had, you know, we changed directions, and he took another job, and I got to work for a couple years there with Brian on the planning commission, or on the planning commission, on the board here, Board of Trustees, and, you know, he's always been super helpful, a great source of knowledge, that's for sure, and will always help you. He will take as long as he needs to with you to help you understand something, and it's great. He has my support. But I think, you know, I also wanted to say, the reason behind my question was I wanted to encourage you guys, you know, that I kind of wanted to see what you guys were thinking and that kind of thing. You guys would all be great candidates, and so I really look forward to hearing from you guys in the future. I know, you know, I've known Brian, I've sat with Brian at this table, and so, yeah.
Well, I just heard that there's going to be openings on the planning commission and the ZBA.
Yes,
I was
yes,
also
I'd like to see
please.
some hands.
But let's do a roll call vote
Yes.
first,
Yes.
find out what's gonna happen, right?
Right.
Supervisor Gunning?
Yes.
Treasurer Rice?
Yes.
Trustee Hauk?
Yes.
Trustee Lannan?
Yes.
Trustee Worley?
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes?
Welcome aboard. All right. You want to say
One
anything?
of the most difficult weeks of my life is done.
Keep it short, though, because I got you on the timer.
Well,
Okay, you're done.
I guess I'm not as nervous now, but I do appreciate the support. I don't know all the other candidates that are here, with the exception of Brian. I do know Taylor, he's not here tonight. I'm humbled because there are some really good people here who all deserve the opportunity, and I hope that there's other ways that they continue to engage in our township. And I hope I can serve you all well and work with each of you, because it's a very individual, one-on-one conversations a lot of times, and I look forward to working with you, so thank you for your support.
All right. You see, you want to come back and swear him
Yeah, we can do, well,
in? But you can do it
if
right
you
here
could
if you
hang
want,
out
probably,
just for
right?
a couple minutes, then I can,
She'd swear you.
but let's just finish the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll only take a few minutes. Final board comments. Congratulations. Oh, manager comments.
No,
Extended
extended
public
Extended
Oh.
public comment.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right,
yep,
so sorry.
yep.
Extended-
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks for the
you.
opportunity.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Public comment?
Yes.
Yes.
I just want to say you had a tough decision tonight. You made a great decision. I think Brian will do an excellent job. He'll be able to fill in and go in the next 14 months. And so, yes, I'm disappointed. It wasn't me, but Brian was a very, very good choice. So congratulations to all of you.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for what you are doing for the township. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
And would anyone else like to come up for public comment? This is going to be regarding any issue.
Mind if I skip the podium?
Well,
What's that? Sure, that's fine.
I was just gonna say, next time, we might have a better plan for how to vote on this, because say somebody else had come up, I think, how many votes did Brian get? Unanimous?
Unanimous.
But if somebody had come before him and gotten 4, it sounds like they would have been they would have got the nomination.
Yeah.
Yes, that's how it works, yeah.
So it seems like you might want to have a different, something better, because so a person who got fewer votes could have been it just because of the order of the people, how they went up there. So I think that's my only comment, is to try to, it's
makes
hard looking
sense.
somebody with this thing.
Sorry, I'm not here.
All I'm saying is you might want to come up with a better system, although this might not happen for another 30 years.
Yeah, yeah.
But you
Just
know what
a
it
thought,
is, right?
because a different order, a different candidate would have.
I know, it was an odd,
Yeah, I thought you were gonna all just, everybody votes for one, everybody has one vote, you count the votes, and whoever, if it was a tie, you drop the bottom one and vote again. That, just a thought.
That's a good thought.
all right. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to, my name is Phil Hertzler at 2113 McDonald Drive. Just wanted to speak to the intersection at Lincoln and Bluegrass. And I'm not surprised they're going 70 miles an hour along that road, because it's a straight shot highway and the road says drive fast on that road. So I don't know what input the board can make into improving the safety of that intersection, but I would encourage either a four-way stop there, or even better, a roundabout that allows traffic to just keep flowing. Roundabout is a road design that will slow the traffic down before it gets there. And we've had recent traffic death over on Isabella. We've had other traffic deaths around the county, around the township, with pedestrians and bicyclists. I think making safety a priority over speed on our roadways is really important.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else like to come forward? All right, seeing none, we close public comment and we move to item 12, which is manager's comments.
I have nothing tonight, thank you.
And we move to final board member comment. We're going to start with Mr. Lana.
I just thank the board for going through the process to fill past trustee Micus's position. Certainly pleased that a decision came tonight and was not put off at taxpayers' expense to hold a election in March, I believe. it would
May,
be.
yeah.
May, so it would have been a considerable amount of time to be a little short on the board and have a 6-person board, which can also be a challenge in itself for some voting purposes. So, thank you, board.
I just had one thing. I know Brian Smith brought it up when he was up here, and I commented on it a little, that he stole my final board member comment. We have a couple spots out there on Bluegrass Road that we talked about maybe 4 or 5 months ago. We were gonna check with those businesses. Has anything happened with that? Weren't we gonna go 50-50 with them, or we offered that and they never got back with us, so.
We have not reached out to those property owners yet regarding trying to obtain an easement from them. We did at that meeting speak about whether or not it made any sense to, what the probability of obtaining an easement was if we were also going to be charging them money.
Right.
But the first thing we need to do, and we haven't done it yet, is to reach out to them to see if they can voluntarily grant an easement.
Final board comments too, I'm still red.
What was his
I'm still red.
What's his
Republican.
Okay, all right, I was wondering where you're going with that one.
Am I supposed to write that down?
I'm just giving you a hard-
Like, what were you mad
I'm just giving you a hard
Yeah,
time.
holy crap.
Oh,
What are you gonna do?
I'm just giving you a
You
hard
had me a little
time.
scared here. I got my gavel though, so I'm cool. Kim,
I'm
okay, all right, we're losing our audience. Norm,
No?
Okay.
Comment.
everybody's
Hurry.
walking out,
Hurry.
because they're afraid
Comment.
you're gonna be long-winded.
I have a comment. Hurry.
No. I have no comment, other than to say, I think that tonight, it was good to see us come to a consensus. I think we have to reflect on how the process and how we're dealing with this. And I don't want to put a damper on things. I'm not going to make those comments tonight. But I do think we have to look at the process that was going on behind the scenes for the past 2 weeks, and some of the things that were being said and done, which weren't professional or not complimentary to this board. And so, that being said, I will just leave it at that. But I'm glad that we reached a consensus tonight, and it was unanimous, because I think the right person for the circumstances was certainly picked tonight, and I'm glad we could all agree on that. So, thank you.
I just want to make a reminder that there's the joint water study at the city, 6 o'clock, City Hall, September 30th. It's really beneficial to all the board members to be there.
I think we're supposed to be there, right? Anyway,
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
I'll sign up for it.
Yeah.
I think so. So please, thank you.
All right, so everybody's had a chance to,
Do you have a comment?
do I have a comment? Welcome aboard, yeah, so we'll kick some ass, right?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
All in favor?
Oh, by the way, because Mike has always brought a hat in, Milky, or
Come on,
I'm talking
all
to
in
you.
favor?
I'm sorry, pay attention.
Yeah, my wife was talking and.
All right, you're in our house though, so eye contact.
My apologies.
All in favor?
So Mike has always had a hat,
Is he still
and
coming?
so the tradition is that we knew it was time to adjourn because, no, I don't want him on our board.
Similar to that.
So you need to bring in a hat.
We have a motion on the floor.
Yeah, yep.
All
So,
in favor?
all in favor? Aye, aye.
Aye.
All right.